Good morning and welcome to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter, the show that takes a look at the events and what's happening all around Putnam County, as well as interviews with local, community, and business leaders. And now, sharing his insights and experience, here's Today in Putnam County with County Mayor Randy Porter.
Good day, and thanks for joining us this week for Today in Putnam County. I'm County Mayor Randy Porter. I'm your host. Hope you're having a great weekend. Our show this week is about one of the most important civic duties we have as an American citizen, in my opinion, and that is voting. We just had our local general election, and coming up in November, we've got the presidential election. So to talk about our elections and voting, my guests this week are three experts in the field. Michelle Honeycutt, she's Administrator of Elections. Phil Adams and Michael Detwiler are two of our 5 election commissioners. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate y'all being here.
Thanks for having me.
I guess the word I would use for the election we just had in August, Michelle, would be unusual.
Oh, yes, it is.
We had some things happen that I guess maybe it's happened before since Tommy Burks was murdered and Charlotte Burks, but you had a write-in candidate in Baxter, won the mayor election, and Danny Holmes. Do you remember that? It doesn't happen very often, does it?
It does not. It happened once in Monterey, but that's because no one was running for alderman, and so that write-in for alderman won that.
Well, where there's somebody that's a competition,
happen.
That's unusual. And then, of course, we've got a new mayor in Monterey, Alex Garcia, won, was a previous alderman. But then you had something happen in Monterey that doesn't happen very often. You had a tie vote with James Foster and Cecilia Paulson. Let's talk about that, Phil. How's that going to work out when you get a tie vote like that? What are you going to do to break that tie?
Well, we first have to go back to the city has their charter and see what their charter says, and that's kind of what we're in the process of doing right now. Michelle's probably a little more up to date than me, but we can't necessarily decide for them. Usually each city has its own process of how you overcome that. Whether it's another vote, flip a coin, it could be something that simple, but it's typically written within their charter.
Within the city
charter. Now, their charter is a fairly old charter, so we're trying to figure that out right now.
Yeah, the charter's the charter. MTAS told them they could go to the general law, which states that legislative body chooses which one. The only thing the state told me was that could cause a lawsuit, whereas if you follow your charter, it will not. But their charter needed to be rewritten in 1998 because they moved all their elections to August.
And so I started getting all these phone calls after that, and there was people reading the general law and people reading the charter and some saying this or that. And so when you read the Monterey Charter, it says that you'll hold a special election in December.
Correct. A runoff election.
Runoff election. Runoff election in December, because they used to have their elections in November when you were having your November elections. But if they do that, what happens between now and December? Does that person that's on the alderman now, does he continue to serve, or is it just a vacant seat?
Up to their legislative body. Their term is over in September.
Right.
So I would think it would be vacant until they choose one.
They'd just be short person.
Of course, I've been told one of them is resigning.
Okay.
So if that's the case, of course, they've called me and said, don't hold the election, but I'm not holding an election anyway because they've not told us to do that. And I can't do anything without them telling us.
And that's going to be up to the Monterey City government to make a decision and to tell you whether you do it or not. Right?
And to pay. If that election comes due, they're going to have to pay for it.
Right. Well, and also, Merry Christmas to all the great folks at the election office who will,
have another
election December 21st.
And that will make a total of 4 elections in 1 year.
Yes. So I think this is going to get resolved because with Mr. Foster stepping aside, I think this just works itself out. I do.
That just doesn't happen very often, does it?
Not really, no.
I was trying to think about my lifetime. It's been very, very rare to have a tie vote.
Yeah, I know Allgood has before, but their charter calls the runoff with the November election. So, and we've done that before, but I've never seen this written in a charter.
They need to look at updating their charter. And then in Allgood, you had Mr. Luke Hill won by 1 vote.
How about that? Yeah. Every vote counts.
Mike, that's what I was thinking. I'd been telling, and I told the story back one time about another election where that 1 vote made the difference. And anybody that thinks that their vote doesn't count, don't look at it on a national election or a state election. Look at it on the local election because 1 vote can make the difference. difference. Yes. And as you can see, two different cities, one vote would made a difference either in the tie vote or in this person winning.
Yeah. And what's the old saying? All politics is local.
Yes.
And it is.
It is. Yeah. That's where you see most of the governing happen that's going to affect you as a local person. The federal level comes down through the states and down, but on the local level, it's those school board seats, city council seats, county elected officials. It's those county commissioners. It's those folks that make the decisions, isn't it? We're talking with our election folks today, and this show is all about elections, and we've got 3 of them this year. 2 of them already happened. We had one in May, which was a primary for the Republican and Democratic Party, and then in August is the general election for our local officials, but it's also a state primary for our state representatives and some folks, U.S. congressmen and folks that are running again in November. Probably your toughest year, isn't it, Michelle, to have 3 elections?
November is tough.
So let's talk about the voter turnout. You and I were talking earlier, 9.66%, I think that's what I saw. Out of 50,525 registered voters, only 4,881 of them voted. I mean, that's sad, isn't it?
It is. It's very sad.
I mean, I went back and looked, and you said you went back and looked a long ways. I couldn't find one that low.
Any lower, no.
So we may have set a record.
11%, but that was quite a few years ago.
Yeah, we may have set a record. So, Mike, what do you think? What was the reason for the low turnout on this one?
Couple things. I don't think there were any races that really piqued people's interests locally, other than, I would say, in Baxter, of course.
Right.
I just don't think there were things on the ballot that caused people to want to turn out for this election. Obviously, we won't have that problem in the November election. Turnout will be significant.
Phenomenal.
Well, and Phil, I was looking back in March in the primary, we had 16.33% turnout, which is still low.
It's very low.
But as you said, Mike, there wasn't people running against each other. Most of them are running unopposed, except for in some of these little city elections. But then you go back into November of 2022 when we had the governor's election, I guess, 40.29%, which is still not great. You didn't even get 50%. And then you go to November of 2020 with the presidential election, 70.52%.
Yes, right.
Why do you think folks turn out more for a presidential election than they do for their local elections?
Cindy and I were actually talking about that the other night, and we were kind of just talking about advertising, making people aware. I mean, did you even really see many yard signs out this time?
No.
So there's not much of that. Presidential has, I'm getting text. I don't know these people. I'm getting texts from presidential candidates. So there's just a lot more publicity in all levels, I think, when it comes to that election. So I think that's probably part of it. And plus the misperception that local politics don't make a difference. So I think there's part of that apathy, maybe, like we were just talking about. People don't realize how important local politics are. Yeah, the difference that you've made in this county as mayor is huge. And I think once you're in, people recognize that. But if you're not from around here and you move in, they don't know who the mayor is. Most people don't know who their county commissioner is.
No,
they have no idea who. But they're aware of Biden and Trump. They've heard those names.
Because it's on a national.
That's right. It's on a national. So I think that's part of it.
I wish people would get more involved in the local city council, school board, county commissioner races, because I get so many people that will call my office wanting to know who their county commissioners are. Sure. They
Check
don't know.
Our website, right?
Yeah, we got them all on the website, PutnamCountyTN.gov. You can always go there and look. All the election stuff, Michelle, is on there. I mean, you have a ton of information. Anything you ever wanted to know about the elections is on the Putnam County TN site. Hey, we got to take a break. We're talking about elections today, and I've got 3 of our experts today: Michelle Honeycutt, Phil Adams, and Michael Detwiler. More with them after this.
And now, back to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter.
Welcome back to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Mayor Randy Porter. Hope you're having a great weekend. Our show this week, it's about one of your civic duties, and I think it's the most important one. That is voting. We just had our local general election and had one of the lowest voting turnouts that we can find. Only 9.66% of the registered voters, which are about 50,525 of them, voted. That turns out to about 4,881 out of 50,525 went to vote. That's not good. one of our civic duties. It's one of our privileges that we get to elect our folks and vote for our folks that are going to be in our government, from the very low school board, county, city races all the way up to the federal race. So I encourage you to always go and vote. And with me today, I've got the professionals that carry on our elections here, and they do a great job. Michelle Honeycutt, she's administrator of elections, and Phil Adams and Michael Detwiler are election commissioners. I think, Phil, you're the actual chairman of the election commission. There's 5 of you, right?
5 of us, 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats.
And that changes. I know folks sometimes wonder how those get picked. That depends on the state legislature, doesn't it, as to the majority in the state legislature, as to whether it's 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats or 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans.
That's exactly right.
And then how are you chosen by the state?
Yeah, I actually had Ryan Williams call me, said he'd been talking to Paul Bailey. My name came up, and would I be interested in going on the election commission? That's been 10 years ago now, believe it or not. But I said yes, and here I am.
And so they appoint y'all. You're appointed by the state.
Yes.
And one thing that I've noticed, to me, and it's not just with y'all, it's with everybody in our community, with all the government officials and everybody getting along. It seems like when y'all come in and you put your partisan politics aside and you make sure that we have a very fair election and make sure it's done right. Am I reading that wrong?
Oh, we get along with both the Democrats very well. We come in as a team, and that's huge. So we don't have any disagreements. If we do, it's not over politics. It might be on procedures, but it's nothing to do with parties.
Right. I would 100% agree with what Phil said, is we, 5 of us, work very well together. And our job's not necessarily to run the office day to day. That's Michelle's job.
Right.
And we're not going to get in her way. But what we are to do is do what we're appointed to do, which is to oversee. And so it's her job day to day to do what she does, and she also guides and directs us on certain things, and it's very great to work with.
Hard to replace, Michelle, what, 28 years?
Yeah, since 1998, I've been counting.
26, yeah, it's been a while. So you do a great job. One thing that we were talking about in the break is I've always felt that we have some of the most secure and safe elections of anywhere. And you were telling me that we've won the number 1 state in the whole United States of election integrity.
Yes. Yes.
3 years in a row.
Is that amazing?
That's amazing. I know Trey Hargett came and spoke to Rotary where I was at and was going through and did a presentation on that. And I was just wondering why all the other states don't look at Tennessee and do the same thing, because I mean,
we wonder the same.
Well, Michelle, you had I watched election results and on the website, and within just a few minutes after 7 o'clock, you had the early vote already out where everybody could see that, and then probably by 9 or 10 o'clock that night, you were done. And that works pretty well across the state, too, and most of the counties. That Tennessee is one of the states that you're pretty well going to know, unless it's a tie or something like we had in this election, you're going to know if you won or lost in the election. And you see some of these other states that take days.
I know.
Yeah.
To me, that just doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I just think that if we can count all of our votes in Tennessee, why can't all these other states count theirs? But I'm not sure that's something we'll fix here today. Michelle, you've been registering a lot of people, a lot of new people coming in to register to vote, right?
We have, yes. Our numbers are growing. I know a lot of people have moved into Putnam County, and we've had plenty of registrations every month, but it has gotten a lot worse now. I guess maybe better, but I'm sure it's before this November election. So,
presidential election coming up.
I'd say that's what's pulling them, and the only thing is it's going to get worse the closer it gets to it.
Well, I pulled some numbers, and it looks like y'all registered almost 1,000 people in the last 4 months. That's a lot, and I know we're growing in our county. And you're also getting folks that just turned voter age to be able to come and vote. Do you get a feel there for, is it people moving here more, or is it we getting a lot of folks that are turning 18?
I think it's people moving here, honestly. But we do get people, and usually the ones that are turning 18, they come in our office because they're excited.
They're excited
to
be able to vote
with them, and they want to register to vote. And then we go to all the high schools also. So we're scheduled to go to a couple of them in September. They want us there so we can register the ones that will be 18 for November.
We got to teach our kids, don't we?
Yeah. And what's good is you can register online now. So that's
it's so easy.
It is.
And voting is so easy. That's we made it so easy with early voting and all these things. And we're going to talk talk about some deadlines. We're talking about our election system here in Putnam County, and it is a very secure, good one. We've got good folks that are running it. We're just having a problem with folks turning out to go vote. So we're going to talk about some of these deadlines and stuff. We got the Michelle Honeycutt. She's the Administrator of Elections. Phil Adams and Michael Detwiler are election commissioners. So, Michelle, you got some registration deadlines coming up on being able to register to vote for the November election. What are those?
It's always 30 days before Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 5th. So it's October 7th. That's the last day for them to come in our office and register in person, or they can go to govotn.gov by midnight that night. We get everything the next day, and we can process all of those. If they mail it in, if it's postmarked by that date, then we can accept it. And we do get a lot that are postmarked, the 10th. We
can't
have to
legally take them.
Register them. And we get a lot of people that show up for early voting thinking they're registered, and they're not. So I just wish people would call us, because all you got to do is call us. We'll look you up. We'll tell you if you're registered.
Yeah, or nay. And it's so easy.
Registered.
It's so easy. Yes. You can do it on your phone, your computer at home, your iPad.
DMV.
Yeah. So it's easy. There's no reason not to. And that's a civic duty that it's one of the freedoms we have in this country. And if we don't take part in it, we don't ever want to see that go away. So I want to talk about absentee voting. You hear all these bad things in other states across the country about mail-in ballots and mailing everybody on the voter registration list a mail-in ballot, and their ballot harvesting and all this kind of stuff. That stuff really scares me and worries me. We don't do that in Tennessee, though. Talk about absentee voting.
Okay. But to vote absentee in this county, you have to request the ballot. And when you request it, we will send you an absentee request form. You have to fill it out with your name, address, where you want it mailed, mark one of the reasons why you're voting by mail, which there are plenty of them, and you must sign it. Now, when we get this back, we'll compare all the info, the social, the date of birth. If anything's different, we'll either try to call them or we'll send them a letter letting them know we can't accept that one. But we compare that signature. Whatever they sign on here, we're comparing it because we scan everything in. So we're comparing their signature. If everything's good, because we have some in now, we will hold them until we get our ballot, which is probably in September sometime. Right. So when we get the ballot, we will then mail it to these people. It has a ballot envelope. They have to sign the outside of that envelope. When that comes back, we compare that signature. So if it doesn't jive, then we're calling them or we're rejecting it.
But that's on watermarked paper.
Yeah.
So they couldn't even make a copy of that.
Right.
It has to come back on that same paper back to our office.
Well, it's keeping the integrity of that ballot, isn't it? You want to make sure that ballot did go to that person. Somebody didn't get it out of their mailbox, or somebody didn't vote for them, or something. So it's very secure and it keeps the integrity.
And they can't drop them off. They have to mail that.
They do mail. And it has to be in our office by 7 o'clock election night.
So if you're out there, is there certain reasons that you can vote by absentee, or can anyone do that?
There's a lot of reasons. Well, of course, if you're out of the county, if you're a student away. One of the biggest ones we get is they're 60 years or older. So anyone 60 can vote by mail. If they are serving on jury duty, let's see, just different things. If they're in a nursing home, military for sure. In military, we can email the ballot to them, but they do have to mail it back.
Yeah.
All ballots have to come back through the mail. Overseas citizen and military are the only ones we can email the ballot to. But there's plenty of reasons, that they can do.
Need to take advantage of it if they're homebound, nursing home, sick, disabled, all these different different reasons you can get an absentee ballot. What is the deadline for somebody to request an absentee ballot?
We have to have it back in our office October 29th.
Okay.
So it's 7 days before that election. We have to have it back.
Okay.
That gives us time to process it, verify the signature, mail the ballot to them, and for them to mail it back by Election Day.
Good deal.
In 2020, we had 2,600.
Well, COVID, right?
Yes, with COVID. But what we saw happening is they requested this ballot through the mail. Whether we've mailed it, okay? It has to come back in our office by Election Day. By Election Day, they're like, I think I'd rather vote at the precinct. Or some of them come in and early voted. You're voting on paper. You're not getting on the machine because you have a ballot.
Right.
So they don't understand, and they didn't like it that they were voting on paper, but we can't, if they're on the machine, we can't take it off.
It's part of the process.
voted on paper and they mailed their ballot back in, we see it, and we only count one of them.
Part of the integrity of the elections.
That's right.
Hey, we got to take a break. We're talking about our local elections we have here in Putnam County and the folks that run those. We're going to talk more about those. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
And now back to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter.
Welcome back to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Mayor Randy Porter. I hope you're having a great weekend. Show this week, it's about our local elections and great job that our local folks do of handling those elections. We were just talking about Tennessee has won 3 years in a row the top state for election integrity, which is amazing, and we're sure glad of it. And we got some great folks here with us this morning that handle our elections. That's Michelle Honeycutt, Phil Adams, and Michael Detwiler. Guys, we've been talking about elections and turnout. And we got election coming up in November, Michelle. Yes. And one of the big things that we've got now that we used to didn't have is early voting, which makes it so easy for folks to vote. So for the November election, when do the early voting dates start?
It starts October the 16th and runs through Halloween the 31st.
31st.
Yes.
And so you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, right?
Yes, that's right. And the hours are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 to 5. Thursday, 8 to 7, and then Saturday, 9 to 1.
So even if you work, if you go into work early or late, or maybe hopefully you'll be off at least on Saturday or be able to come in on Thursday night, and so it opens it up. So really making it easy to go vote, Mike. There's no reason not to vote anymore, is there?
Absolutely. It does make it easy, and where we're at is convenient on Willow Avenue across from the radio station, and it's easy to get in. It's easy to get in the building and vote and then get out. It takes minutes.
Just minutes, yeah, to get in and out. Phil, we got new voting machines.
Yes, we're pretty excited about those.
Yeah,
so
adds a paper trail to the vote, right?
It does. We looked at several different types, and the one that we have, people can't physically touch the paper, but they can see the paper. It looks kind of like the size of a small tablet.
Yeah.
And they press the buttons. They hit a kind of a summary button. They can see it. I'm one of those. I like to see what I voted before I hit that final vote button.
Make sure you didn't make a mistake and hit a wrong button.
That's exactly right. So they're real easy to use. It's added a little bit of color to it, so it's a little bit easier to see what you voted for. It's got a lot of handicap features. In fact, this year we used it's called a double talk feature. We actually used it twice where somebody who's blind comes in. They came in, somebody drove them in, but unassisted, they voted with the machine with nobody standing there to help them.
That's amazing.
So it gives them that ability.
So you've done everything you could for the physically handicapped, disabled, whatever it is, to be able to come vote regardless.
Yes.
Well, that is great. You've also done some combining of precincts, I guess you would say. I mean, we had a bunch of precincts, and years ago there were, when folks had to drive, I mean, people didn't come to town as often, did they? So you had these precincts scattered all over the county, and y'all tried to narrow those down now and make the precincts larger, right?
Yeah, we looked at, was it 4? I think this last time we got to looking on maps, and we had 4 that were within 5 miles of each other. In fact, one was 1.5 miles, pretty close. And we were kind of like 1.5 miles apart. And part of that is not only for that, but we have trouble getting workers. And each location has to have a fairly good number of workers. So if we can consolidate, even if we have to add a few machines to that combined precinct, it's not double the amount of workers.
Right.
So that helps us. And it's just easier to track less precincts. It's a lot of paperwork to keep up with.
Well, and speaking of election workers, Michelle, in the past, especially during the COVID years, trouble getting election workers.
Yes.
If somebody wants to be an election worker, what would they do?
We prefer they come in our office and tell us, and we have a form they can complete. We can talk to them about the different positions, see what they're interested in. But they can also go to our webpage, and then on there it's poll workers, and they can click on that, and there is a form. They can also go to the state site. They have a place for poll workers, and that's on our election page, our webpage. But they can go on that and click it and fill out something, a state form. And then we get that. We get all of those.
Another question that I've had asked is about purging of the rolls of folks that when they're deceased or they move out of state or move away from here. You purge rolls, right?
Yes. We are allowed to check the obituaries, so at least once a week the girls in office are checking the obituaries and we purge the people. Also, once a month, the state gives us a report from anyone that is deceased in the state of Tennessee. So It can be anywhere. So we get that and we purge the deceased. We're online with the state. So every day we have to send our records to the state, and we receive their records, which is if we had John Smith registered in our county and John Smith went yesterday to register in Lebanon, then we're going to get that.
Right. And does our state work with the other states, I guess, across the country to keep up with
as many that will participate. They do that. Yes, it's not as often, but we do get those.
So another thing that people get mixed up on is Election Day, because not every county or city votes at the same time. The polls don't open at the same time, Mike. What time does Putnam County polls open?
So Putnam County is 9 a.m. There are 23 counties in the state that open at 7 a.m., and the biggest one that causes us consternation is Davidson County.
Yes.
Because you're getting up, you're getting ready, you're watching
TV.
And they say, polls open at 7. And so you rush over to your precinct, say at Northeast School, and you're going to go vote at 7, and you're like,
where's everybody at?
What's going on here? So it's 9 to 7.
Well, and everybody needs to remember that on all the election days. If you wait until election day and don't go early vote, which you got plenty of opportunity to do, that it's 9 to 7. Another thing, Michelle, a lot of folks I think don't know is the election results are available real time on the website.
Yes.
PutnamCountyTN.gov, and then click on department heads and elections, and you've actually got it to where that the browser will automatically refresh itself every time that you update with votes. Yeah. I was noticing the other day when you had the August election, early vote came out within just a few minutes after 7 o'clock when the polls closed. And then what folks may not realize, though, Phil, is those vote machines out at these precincts have to be tabulated, packed up, brought to the election office. You've got to hook them up to your computers and make sure the tabulations match and everything, and load them in the system before you can actually put that vote out. So it takes a little while, doesn't it?
It does. The further out the precinct is, the longer it's going to take them to get back to us.
Yeah.
If they close at 7, we may not see some till 8 o'clock by the time they load up and get back to the main office. So we're often there. If we're out at 9, we feel fortunate. We've been there a whole lot later than that, depending how many folks are coming in and how long it takes them to shut everything down. Because if someone's in line, they continue to vote.
They're allowed to vote.
They're allowed to vote as long as they were in line at that time.
Right. By 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's very interesting, being the newest commissioner, is seeing what goes on election night as they're bringing it in, and we've got a great team.
Yes, you really do.
They're very organized, and they're bringing the things in, and the workers who are out at the precincts know exactly what they have to have and what they have to do, and so the team makes sure that they have those things in order, so it's a very efficient process.
Absolutely. And Michelle has a great group in your office that I won't start naming off because I'll leave somebody out, and I don't want to do that. But y'all do a great job. And I appreciate y'all being on the show and talking about the elections. And folks, the big thing to take out of today is go vote. We had a tie vote in Monterey this time. We had one in Allgood that won by one vote. So don't think that your vote doesn't count, because it does. Hey, that's our show for this week. Hope you join us every weekend for Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Mayor Randy Porter. Hoping you have a great rest of your weekend, and may God continue to bless our great county.
You've been listening to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter.